are now coming to the part of the program where we will have a general debate. And I have two esteemed speakers here. The first one to address us in this segment will be Speaker Baroness D'Souza from the United Kingdom. To the podium, please. She's from the House of Lords. And I invite Speaker De Jiang, National People's Congress of China, to the next speaker's seat, please. Honorable D'Souza, you have the floor. And may I just announce that we will have to confine you, Honorable Speaker, to 4 minutes.
Madam Chair, distinguished delegates and fellow parliamentarians, it is indeed an honor today to contribute to the general debate, and I welcome the priority the United Nations has attached to this event. I would also like to congratulate the IPU President for convening such a significant gathering of speakers ahead of the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals by world leaders in a little under a month's time. Our task today is to consider the role that parliaments play in shaping these new goals. Let me briefly describe the role national parliaments can and must play in the implementation of these goals and illustrate this by focusing on the proposed Goal 5.2, eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in public and private spheres. Gender-based violence affects all nations and takes many forms. It is diverse, covering acts from female genital mutilation, domestic violence, to rape as a weapon of war. Without tackling gender-based violence, there can be no gender equality. It reinforces unequal power relations between men and women and prevents the advancement of women across the world. It breaks societal bonds and destroys communities. In conflict situations, it affects regional and international security, creating refugee flows, destabilizes ceasefires, and undermines long-term prospects for peace and security. But ending such violence, dear colleagues, is easier said than done. However, awareness of the extent of gender-based violence and the damage it causes to women and our societies more generally is increasing. And national parliaments have a role to play in 3 ways: by ensuring appropriate legislation is in place, by raising awareness of the problem, and by scrutinizing the effectiveness of government in tackling it. First of all, national parliaments can ensure that an appropriate legislative framework exists to prevent violence both nationally and internationally. In the United Kingdom, where FGM was outlawed in 1985, the Female Genital Mutilation Act of 2003 made it illegal for UK nationals to perform female genital mutilation outside UK borders and increased the maximum penalty for carrying out FGM within the UK. But putting the legislative framework into place is only part of the criminalization solution. It took 29 years for FGM in the UK to the first prosecution for practicing FGM to be brought in 2014. These prosecutions were partly the result of campaigners tirelessly working to raise public awareness of the issue, pushing the police and prosecuting authorities to action. And here is a second way in which parliaments can and must play their part. Since 2003, the subject of FGM has been regularly raised in the House of Lords and the House of Commons Home Affairs Committee inquiry of 2014, which also drew attention to the failure to prosecute. And the final role national parliaments have to play is in the scrutiny of their national governments to ensure that their actions are in fact effective. The UK Parliament's Joint Committee on Human Rights last year reported on sexual violence against women and girls, making practical recommendations to the UK government on ratification of the Istanbul Convention against Women and Domestic Violence. In June this year, the House of Lords appointed a committee on sexual violence in conflict, which will report in early 2016. The committee will consider the effectiveness of the government's international role in leading the fight against sexual violence in conflict, which included establishing the Preventing Sexual Violence Initiative and hosting the Global Summit to End Sexual Violence in Conflict in 2014. So even when governments are working to prevent gender-based violence, national parliaments must challenge them to ensure that what they're doing is effective. It is through these processes that parliaments can and must contribute to the shaping and implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Dear colleagues, I look forward to hearing the views and indeed meeting with colleagues to exchange views, particularly given the key oversight role parliaments will play in ensuring implementation of the SDGs in years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable D'Souza. I now